Okay guys, so welcome back to another weekly analysis. Hope everyone is doing well. As always guys, we've got different pairs to go through. Here's the list of the pairs we'll be analyzing in today's video. But make sure you do stay to the end of the video because we do have a bonus pair in store for you. I'll quickly go through my trades for the week first, take a look at the dollar as well, and then progress into the analysis. If there is a particular pair you do want to skip ahead to, feel free to use the timestamps below. But I had one position this week on pound CAD, which I closed out for a loser. It was about minus 0.5 something R, 0.56 R. So not quite a full loss. Managed to close the trade a little bit earlier. Haven't really gone anywhere since. The market is still pretty flat. I'm still looking to see if I can re-enter the trade because momentum did shift against me. So I'm looking to see if I can find some more entries for the position. But the idea for pound CAD is that I'm looking for a lower high. We were speaking about this setup on last week's analysis that we had these lower highs price was developing. Initially one over there. Well, that was the high of the move. Then we had a swing to the downside, creating a new low, lower high, new low. Then we had a really strong move to the upside. And again, I'm anticipating another lower high falling for another push down. We had some trendline confluence coming through the market. We pulled back into the 0.786 on the fib as well, and we had a really nice double top pattern here too. So I was looking for the shift of momentum, got a strong entry. However, that momentum did fail and market started to push up against me. Looks like we're still respecting that same level. So if I can see a stronger reaction, preferably price push a little bit closer to the high, so I can get my stop loss in a bit more in a safe place, then I'll look for a re-entry and similar targets back to the low, and a position which I am keen to potentially hold a lot longer as well, because the idea with pound CAD, and I probably should save this for later because we're going to take a look at pound CAD in a bit more detail later in the analysis, but we are very stretched and we've taken out some major highs, so I do think there's a pretty big move for us. But I will go into the bit more detail when this pair actually does come up later in the analysis. Over to the dollar. So dollar this week, a bit of a mixed week. We started off very bearish, but then we recovered that and then we're pretty much flat after. I think dollar is just running out a bit of steam. A key thing I want to point out is how the weekly candle did close. You can see a massive wick there to the downside, and we closed semi-bullish there. So again, nothing crazy. We potentially could even fill the wick next week and continue, but it is a sign that the market is slowing down, especially because a couple of weeks back we had a ginormous bearish candle. So it looks like price is starting to respect the lows on the left. This is massive weekly support. Looks to be more or less holding or at least slowing down price. So I do think a pullback is definitely on the cards now for the dollar. And looking at the lower time frame price action, we've kind of got this inverse head and shoulder pattern starting to form. You got your left, you got your head, and you got your right shoulder here forming. Not the cleanest of patterns or the best setups, but it's the idea that the price has had one last flush to the downside with this very aggressive move at the start of the week. We recovered that, and now we're back above that same level of support. So as long as we maintain that support, I do expect to see a recovery for the dollar and a push to the upside. So I'm expecting some bullishness for the dollar. It's overextended, it's taken out some major lows. We're seeing price action shift bullish on the lower time frames. So this is indicating potentially a recovery for the dollar. I'm still pretty much bearish long term. So if I scoot back to the daily chart, as soon as we get back to 101.5, 103.5, 104, I'm looking to see if I can short it again for a big swing back to lows and maybe further as well. We can speak a lot more about that in the coming weeks. At the moment, I think the most important move is probably some pullbacks on the dollar. So still expecting some strength, but we do need to maintain this level here at 99,250. Crack through that, we're probably going to end up back at the lows and probably seeing some new lows as well. Again, even if we do that, sooner or later, I do expect the pullback to happen at some point. So I'm just going to keep falling. But if this support does not hold this week, we probably will see another bearish week as we come lower. So that's something to take into consideration. But if we can maintain that Monday, Tuesday, I do think we can see a bit of a rally for the remainder of the week and perhaps a pushback to 101.5. Of course, that does depend how bullish the dollar will be, but I'm expecting some type of pullback of that nature. In the next coming days, Euro pretty much the exact same thing, but the opposite. So of course, Euro big push to the upside at the start of this week. Then we came crashing back down. Now a bit flat. So again, looks like we're forming a bit of a head and shoulder pattern here. So there's your left, there's your head, and of course, anticipating a right shoulder. This is the zone I'm looking for price to come back and retest. So of course, prior resistance there. That's kind of our fake out. Now looking to see price can respect its resistance and have that drop. So looking for some downside on euro. The move I'm interested in is again still looking to buy euro. I still think there's more upside for this one. But again, similar to the dollar, we're very stretched. We're taking out some massive weekly resistance on our left here. We are seeing signs of slowing down, so I do think price will have a bit of a breather. I think there is more upside to be had longer term. So if we can push back to 1.115, 1.095, these areas, I'll be looking to see if I can pick up some longs for euro. Again, this is more of an idea probably for the week after next, because I think it would take us at least a week to get down there. Of course, maybe not. Maybe the market is very volatile for whatever reason. That could happen. But I think in the meantime, shorts are still the best play with euro as long as we can respect 1.145. Similar to the dollar, if we do break through that resistance, we'll likely push back to highs and probably see a bullish week for euro as well. So that level is pretty important if we can maintain that. So shorts, starting off the week, if you're looking for some counter trend plays, the market's quite overextended. This to me looks like a nice counter trend opportunity. If you're looking to follow the trend and look for those bigger pullbacks, then you do want to wait a little bit more patiently. Price to come a little bit lower. We've got that 1.115 area just below us. And we've also got this area here too, 1.095 in case we have a much bigger pullback. But those are the setups I'm interested in next week for Euro USD. Okay, so next up we've got USD JPY. So this one has managed to hit 140, massive level in the market. So I do think we are due a bit of a retracement for USD JPY. Again, very bearish on the way down, but this level has proven to be a strong level in recent times. As we can see initially over there, really strong reaction. Secondly, there again, very strong reaction. And we're there a third time. Of course, we've only just reacted. We don't know how big this reaction will be, but it does look like price is holding pretty firmly. And I do think we are in need of some retracement. I do think, however, the bigger move for dollar yen is still a lot lower. So I'm looking to see if price can pull back into some of these areas here where potentially the lower high can form and we can make our way back down into the same level, maybe go and break through it again. But based on how price is looking, it does look like we still got some upside left. And dropping to the 4-hour chart, similar to the dollar, again, it is another dollar pair. We had that flush to the downside at the start of the week. Price recovered that. Again, we're kind of getting this inverse head and shoulder pattern forming. There's your left, there's your head, and there's perhaps your right shoulder. Maybe it's already formed with that retest, but I think it would be nice to see price come back down again, retest it. Also, we are looking a little bit tired, so I wonder if that move is likely to happen. And if it does happen, I think that'd be a great place for some entries on the lower time frames. And then, yeah, 146.5, 147 is kind of where I'm looking for price to get to. If I scoot to the daily chart, massive support there. I think that has a good chance of acting as resistance and possibly drawing price. And especially this low here, really massive support, big move to the upside. I wonder if we can come back, get a clean retest of that level, 149, before maybe we do push down. So I am pretty bullish on dollar yen. On the short, medium term point of view, I think long term was still heading down. But judging how price is looking, we've been pretty fatigued on the way down. It's very corrective. So I've been expecting a push to the upside. Now we've got that. I think we are looking good for some continuation opportunities of that bullish move. So something like this looks good. Again, if we crack that support, we're likely going to push back to the low there. Probably be a bearish week. It might just be a big double bottom we could reverse. So we'll see how price reacts when we get there again. If this support doesn't hold, but this is a really nice location for a buy. And if it does hold, probably allows you to get a really nice risk reward opportunity there and take some long. So keep an eye on 142.5 and expecting a lot more upside for dollar yen. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So I am looking for a pullback for dollar CAD. Again, another USD pair. I do think we're a little bit stretched to the downside. You can see if I look at the larger daily structure here, we had the high over there, lovely drop, creating a new low, another lower high, another drop, creating a new low. I'm looking at this kind of tiring, pulling back to form that next lower high. Hopefully a third one in there, and then we continue to the downside. So that's the biggest swing I'm interested in for dollar CAD. Perhaps in the meantime, there could be some nice buys to take advantage of maybe a nice counter trend play, taking advantage of the retracement. I did point out some buys early in the week on the break and retest of this range here, which we did see, but it hasn't really shown much continuation of that. So we had the initial break, retest there, nice push up, struggled at resistance, push down again, struggled at resistance, push down again. So the market is really failing to push higher. So I think there might be another push down here for dollar CAD, potentially that third kind of lower low in this kind of descending pattern. So first drive, second drive, third drive, then perhaps we might have that bigger pullback. Again, I'm not so concerned with the buys. I'm not really looking for a clean opportunity here for a buy. I just want price to retrace essentially. And then once we start coming back to 1.405, 1.415, these are the levels where I'm looking for that daily pullback. Ideally, I would like to see a bigger pullback to this level. It lines up pretty well with my 0.5 on the fib. Again, it might change if we push a little bit lower, so we'll have to wait and see for that. But I like that level at the moment. I like both of them, to be honest, but just that one has a bit more confluence. But we have to wait and see if we can get a pullback this week for dollar CAD. That would be fantastic, and then I'll be looking for opportunities. First level 1.405, second level 1.415, 416, and hopefully you can swing it back to lows, and that could be a pretty big trade in itself as well. So as you can see, I'm pretty much bearish on the dollar. Longer term, all my opportunities are kind of favoring that right now. But in the short, medium term, I do think we can see some pullbacks for USD and some bullishness coming back into the market. So dollar CAD, I still like the upside. Potentially we do break to the upside and still respect that level. Maybe we have like a triple bottom here and turn around. But if we do flush down one more time, you can use that to your advantage and capitalize on a nice pullback. But these are the moves I'm interested in. So that will be the plan next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, I was speaking about some sells this week. I said I do really like this area here, brief area of supply, nice push to the downside. Would be nice for price to come back, test that supply, then sell off. Didn't quite see that. We formed a double top here, then continued lower. Would have been nice to kind of spike a little bit higher, tag that area. I also talked about this resistance here, kind of get that nice complete textbook, if you will, head and shoulder pattern, left, head, and then the right shoulder. Didn't quite happen there, but it effectively still is a head and shoulder pattern. There's your left, there's your head. Just the right shoulder is a little bit lower than I anticipated. And of course, this being your neckline here. Now, Euro Pound still has a lot of bullish momentum. This was a ginormous leg to the upside. So I still like the idea of price pulling back to that level and seeing some nice buying opportunities. I wouldn't try and push this back to highs. I'm not so confident about looking for continuation plays for Euro Pounds. Not the type of market which you want to really try and take advantage of a trend. You know, since 2016, we've been pretty much flat the whole time. So trying to follow trends here on a short-term basis could be decent, but long-term basis, no, not really. So if I would take a buy, I wouldn't try to swing it back to highs or higher highs. I'll just look for the next kind of level, which would make sense for sellers to go back against me. For example, if we do break to the downside here, then this definitely would be my focus. That is a pretty strong level of support, which probably will be turn resistance there and definitely could potentially send price down against me. So that would be at least the first take profit, not necessarily the end of the trade. It could be. If I wouldn't take profits there, then I probably would look at the high here where we formed that double top there as well as an area to turn around. I wouldn't be trying to push it back to highs just because of Euro Pound's nature. And also, we don't necessarily need to for it to be a decent trade too. If you can get an entry similar to this, you could probably get a nice 1 to 2 at least back into that level. And that could be all you're looking for from the market. It's up to you how you want to manage it. But yeah, Euro Pound, again, missed the kind of short opportunity from that zone there. Now we've made our way down. So now I'm shifting more to a bullish bias for Euro Pound. Don't really have a long-term play for Euro Pound. So I'm just looking for more short-term opportunities between levels until I can kind of suss out the high time frames. I'm not going to impose a longer-term bias. So for now, I like the bias here from 0.845. Target is back at 0.852, potentially 0.886 if you want to push trade a bit further. But that's the play for me next week for Euro Pound. Okay, so over to Aussie dollars. So I'm looking still for a big reversal for this one. NZD USD, we've seen a big move. I think Aussie dollars kind of lagging behind a little bit. But basically, we've come into major support on the higher time frames. It looks like price is falling at bottom. We saw a massive bearish candle. Looks like it was breaking through at one point. The next bullish candle completely raised that. And now I'm expecting price to now break to the upside. And again, this is going to be I'm anticipating this is going to be a bit of a bottom for Aussie dollar here. So I'm pretty bullish on it. Just now looking for an opportunity to trade that bias. As we can see, we are struggling at resistance now. So now is definitely not the best time to be looking to enter buys if you're looking to swing the market. Again, maybe intraday you might get away with it if you're trying to get in and out, but a longer term trade, not the best time to be looking to buy Aussie dollar. So I'm looking for one or two things. Either price has a new revival of bullish momentum, we see a strong break, and then of course I'll be looking for the retest of that zone for continuations. Or if the market is struggling and we do tire and we do roll over, then these two zones I'm looking at, 0.632 and also 0.623 as areas where I'll be happy to buy the market from and swing it to the upside. So it's very, very simple with Aussie dollar. I've got my bias and I understand where there's a good chance of price pushing towards. So I just want to position myself carefully in that direction. And it's either we get a big break from somewhere, maybe dollar's very bearish again for whatever reason, and we continue falling. Well, then I'll look for the break and retest opportunity above this level, which is 0.64, which is basically a break and retest of the high there. If we decide to come lower, then there's two levels I'll focus on. This level here and this level here as well. Both look good. I probably would rather the lower one because of risk to reward, and I kind of prefer the zone a little bit better. But if I see sufficient rejections and I see a good confirmation, then I won't say no to that. And also the risk reward looks really good, so I don't mind potentially taking a loss, take a win as well. Because if I do take that win, it could be a much bigger win. So I'm not too concerned about that. But that's the plan next week for Aussie dollar. Just looking for the pullbacks and long opportunities. Levels I'm interested in, 0.623, 0.632 and 0.64. Okay, so next up we've got New Zealand CAD. So I am very bullish on this one. I do think price is still very likely to take out the highs over here and continue a lot further. We've seen a massive kind of V-shaped reversal here, massive sell, massive buy back up. So again, I do think price is likely to pull back and continue. You can see on the monthly chart, actually, we're starting to form a massive wick here to the downside. Now the month candle still has 4 days before it closes, but I highly doubt we do go and fill that wick in the next 4 days. So massive wick to the downside. Basically, price is respecting support here. So I do think for the month of, not necessarily doesn't have to be May. We don't have to necessarily see a bullish month for May. I think over the next 2-3 candles here in the monthly chart, which is the next 2-3 months, we probably are going to see an up move, potentially at least back to 0.84, but potentially 0.85, potentially 0.86 as well. So I do have that kind of longer term swing bias for New Zealand CAD. So if I do see a decent move down, I'm looking to position myself long and see if I can really hold a winning trade there to the upside. So right now the market looks very, very fatigued, very stagnant in this ascending channel. So I do anticipate a bit of a drop, and then hopefully that will allow me to pick up some longs. I'm looking at this zone here, nice support there. We'll be taking as support hopefully, and that's where I'll look to find my entries. Stops below the level roughly, and targets back to the high, but I will be looking to hold positions to run as well. I'll take a decent chunk of my profits at the high, but like I said, I do think this can go a lot further. So if things are looking good, I will leave stops to trail and leave positions to run as well. So that'll be the plan next week for New Zealand CAD. Okay, so next up we've got pound NZD. So I am still pretty bearish with this one long term. I do think this lovely uptrend is probably coming to an end pretty soon. I do think we're likely to form a lower high next and continue lower, but we are looking like we're about to form another higher low. So I do think we'll see a nice bullish move for pound NZD. You can see we come back into a nice zone here. Lovely consolidation. Spent a few days there. Big break to the upside. This is the first time price has come back to retest it. So far it's doing a pretty good job to respect that same zone. Lovely piercing wick to the downside a couple of days ago. It does look like a bottom is forming. I dropped to the 4-hour chart. You can see how nicely corrected we fell into that level. Again, typically a market that's moving like this into a big level typically does bounce there. Again, how long for? That's always a difficult question to answer. But this is not necessarily the sign of a price action that's likely to break the level at least straight away as well. We probably will push up first. if the market is going to break through the level, it might happen quite a bit later. So I do think we're likely to see some upside for pound NZD. Again, could be looking for some entries on the lower time frames right at the low. That would be a nice entry in the 4-hour chart as well. Perhaps you could wait for another retest before entering, but typically just entries in this area look pretty good to me. I'm quite keen on the sell, so I'm kind of hoping to see price push up first. And then this zone up here where I'm looking for that lower high around 2.27. If we can make our way up there, I'll be more than happy to look for that lower high and a big push down. I'm looking for quite a big head and shoulder pattern here. Seeing quite a few of them in the markets at the moment. Left head and then your right shoulder. And I do think there could be a lovely move to the downside because this one's been grinding high for quite a while. So I do expect a pretty big drop for pound NZD. And I think it's on its way. So maybe one last push to the upside. Hopefully we can get back to 2.27 or roughly around that area. And that's where I'll start looking for my setups, take some shorts, and hopefully really swing a nice trade out of this one. So that'll be the plan. I'll speak more about the sales probably next week, but for this week, it's probably the buys I'm mainly focused on. So that's the plan there for pound NZD. Okay, so next up we've got CAD Yen. So we're still squeezing between this trend line and this support level. I'm not a big fan of the price action with this one. Everything seems to be a bit sluggish, not really seeing much momentum, so I'm not really interested in trading it. Looking at the higher time frames as well, more specifically the weekly chart, it does look like price is really failing at the lows. Very, very tight price action, a lot of wicks, rejection. Price looks like it's failing to break through the low here. So I do think we are due a bit of a pullback for CAD Yen. Eventually, but of course we do need to break out of this kind of wedge pattern here. So if price does make a break to the upside, there could be some nice breakout opportunities. I'm not really one for that, but if price was to create a level and perhaps retest that, there might be some nice break and retest opportunities, of course, outside of this wedge here. But of course, you would have to wait for the level to form, so price to create resistance, break it, then retest. Probably a bit more of an intraday trade. Again, hypothetical, we haven't broken out yet, so we don't know how quite that might look, but that's kind of the idea I would be looking for. Or of course, if price does reject the trend line, we see sufficient rejection, nice shift of momentum, there could be some nice sells there and a continuation back into support. In fairness, we have rejected the trend line on 3 separate occasions here. We've done a pretty good job at respecting it, so we could be seeing that again. So with CAD Yen, I'm kind of just waiting to see what price's next move is. Is it going to break out? Is it going to respect? If it does break out, well, then I'll look for a swing back to the high here, back to 105.5. If we do respect the trend line, then I'll be looking for a push back into support and just expecting that wedge pattern to continue. So it's completely up to price right now. Don't really have much information to justify whether I'm expecting the breakout or not. We've closed into the level. Next candle's been a doji on the 4-hour chart, so it's just saying that momentum is dying down, but that could pick up come next week. So be prepared for either or, because either or looks just as likely. I do think the upside is a bit more likely just because we're failing at support so much. We're seeing a lot of wicks, so I do kind of favor CAD Yen to push on, but we have to wait for that breakout first to really get that confirmation. But that'll be the plan next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so next up we've got pound USD. So I am still pretty bullish on pound USD, but I do want to see a bit of a pullback. Again, another USD pair. I'm still expecting a bit of strength for the dollar, purely in terms of retracement, and pound USD I expect retracement anyway as well. This one's been so bullish. And of course we've hit a big level as well on the left, which so far we're not managing to break through. So I do think there's some downside opportunities for pound USD. A little bit more aggressive. I feel like Euro looks a bit cleaner. Some other USD CAD looks a little bit better in terms of taking those counter trend moves. Pound USD potentially might be forming a lower high in this vicinity here. I will keep an eye out for potentially a bit of a double top, maybe some entries in the lower time frames for a short, kind of like a head and shoulder pattern, left head, right shoulder, but not your most orthodox or your most textbook representation. So pound USD, I probably would forget about the sells unless maybe we push back to resistance and double top it. That could be a nice opportunity because you can get your stop loss right above the high. More so if you focus on the buys, then yeah, just waiting for price to come to us pretty much. 1.31 looks really good, and also 1.3 looks really good as well. Just looking for a healthy pullback to keep buying it. Again, this is our last bullish swing for pound USD on the daily chart. So if I whip out the fib from the low to the high, roughly just looking for price to come back into confluence in this area. It would be nice to see price push into the 0.618. Lines up pretty well with this zone, but we'll see how big of a pullback we get. But yeah, so very, very bullish on pound. Just looking for some pullbacks for this one before buying. 1.31 would be my first area of interest. Like I said, there might be some counter trend sells to take advantage of. Well, if we are going to retrace, then there would be, but I think other USD pairs look a little bit cleaner in terms of the setup. And again, they're going to do the same thing roughly. Excuse me. They're going to do the same thing roughly. So you might as well just focus on the better opportunity and trade that opportunity. But pound, I really like for the longs. So just waiting for that setup to come around, which might take a few days. So yeah, that is the plan next week for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So pound CAD, I like this opportunity. I'm looking to see if I can get back into a position for this one. I think on the higher time frames, the market's quite stretched, very overextended. We've been bullish since the low here in September 2022. The market has been in a pretty steady uptrend. Altogether, the trend hasn't been anything spectacular. It's been pretty corrective. We've had this one last big push to the upside, so I'm looking at that as being a bit of an anticlimactic end to the trend and potentially us slowly rolling over. We've also taken out some major highs on the weekly chart. If you look to the left here, taking out some highs there, which we haven't done since 2018. So we're at some high prices here for pound CAD. The market's quite stretched. I do think we are due a pullback. So I do like the opportunity of taking some counter trend opportunities, counter trend setups. And the reason why I like it a lot as well is because if it does play out, this could go a lot further than we think potentially, because it could be a top to the market. It could, of course, just be us having that bigger pullback. Even so, a swing back to support here would be a very, very decent trade depending on your entry. But again, if this does turn to be potentially a bit of a reversal or just a much bigger pullback, then we could be working our way back to support down here at 1.74800, which again, you're looking at a pretty big drop there, and this is the 4-hour chart. So not a small move for pound CAD if we were to see this lower high form. So I wanted to see price push up into resistance, double top it again. We've got some nice trendline confluence there. That would be a great place to look for an entry. And again, we'll just keep it relatively simple. Targets back at the low 1.8 look good. Like I said, I think we can go further as well, but let's see if we can get to the support level first before we do talk about the targets beyond that. But that's my idea for pound CAD going into next week. Okay, so over to pound yen. So I'm still pretty bearish on pound yen. We've had a nice bullish leg to the upside. I've been a bit hesitant looking to short pound yen at these prices because we do have support to our left. I was looking to see if I could have a stab at this level. I didn't really see a sufficient rejection, so I stayed away. Now that we had a beautiful rally to the upside, we are coming back into an interesting area, back into supply, back into the area which gave us this strong move to the downside initially. So if we are going to continue with these lower highs, then I'm going to be expecting another one to fall. I do not want to see price take out this high here, because if you do that, that completely does invalidate my bearish bias. And if we are still going to roll over, then this is the wick low I'm long-term expecting price to go and hit. Of course, first big initial target would be the swing low. So that will be the major one we focus on for now, but I still see room to the downside, which is the point I'm trying to make there. So pound yen, I do like the upside. There could be some short-term buying opportunities. Say we start the week off pretty bearish, market pulls back into support here. There could be a nice buy there, continuing on for these higher lows. Might see a nice opportunity to long it back into that kind of area of supply on the daily chart. Then we can start to speak about some shorts when we get into this area, potentially some double tops, rejection, before I do start to look to short it. And again, targets back down to the swing low. So again, a lot of pips to catch here if we do see that swing. So it's definitely something I'm interested in at the moment with pound yen. But if you are looking for buys, I think there's still a decent buy setup. Should be pullback. 189.5 looks really good. And of course, I think targeting the supply area makes a lot of sense as well. And of course, we can start to look to short it. But yeah, I'm very bearish on pound yen. I'm still bearish across the board with the yen pairs longer term. I still think there's more downside to be had. But initially, it does look like a decent buy setup here if the price was to pull back and we see sufficient rejection there. So that is the plan going to next week for pound yen. Okay, so over to gold. I am still pretty bullish with this one. I know we've had a bit of a drop this week. Well, actually, we started off pretty bullish and then we dropped. So it's a bit of a mixed week. As a whole, you can see we only closed slightly bearish, but of course, massive wick to the upside. So maybe we are starting to top potentially for gold. I still do like the buys lower down. There's still some untested areas where I was initially looking for price to pull back into for a buy. So when we broke out of this range, I was looking for the retest, didn't happen. And the retest of that high didn't happen as well. So I still like the buys from these zones. Am I as optimistic whether gold will make it back to the highs? Not so much, because we are seeing some momentum. Market is starting to form some lower highs as well. As we can see, we haven't quite taken up the lows, but it looks like we are struggling to push up, at least on the last bullish move, and we are seeing some downside with some force. So I'm still viewing this as a pullback. We haven't broken through any major structure yet. I know we've broken through this low here, but I don't really deem that to be a major structural point there for gold. This would be a major point here. So as long as we stay corrective on our way down, I'm still going to be expecting a bit of a bounce for gold. If I whip out the fib from the low to the high here, we haven't even reached the 50. So I would like to see price come back to these areas. I think there's a good chance for a bounce. Will price, potentially rocket from here and go back to the all-time highs? I'm not too sure. Maybe it is time for price to potentially top out for a bit and see some downside. I think regardless, this is a good opportunity for at least a bounce there for gold, whether it might be for a day or 7 days. That'll be up to gold, of course, but I think this is a nice place to position yourself long, especially if you're going to maybe trail stops and just see if you can catch potentially a big winner here. It may rally back to highs and further may go and hit 4K, or it might be a situation where we bounce for a day and then we roll over. That will be up to the market there, but these are some nice areas where momentum's come from. If you get back there again, see good rejections, there'll be a good sign that we do see a bounce again for gold. So keeping a close eye on both those levels, and yeah, just waiting to see if we can get some good rejection when we get there. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin looking pretty bullish this week. Lovely break to the upside. We've cleared some resistance, and of course we did clear the trend line. That was about a week back at least. So that's already happened, but now we're kind of seeing the follow through of that. So I'm actually pretty bullish on Bitcoin. We've had a very corrected move to the downside. Hasn't been very aggressive. We haven't really seen much selling pressures, being very, very choppy. And now we're seeing momentum push up, clearing highs pretty well. I'm pretty bullish. Unless price comes straight back down just as aggressively, that would worry me. But if things are slow and we kind of even consolidate, to be fair, I wouldn't mind that at all. I'll be expecting Bitcoin to rally. There's a really nice level just below us here, around 88K. I think that would be the best place for a long, to be honest. My only worry is that if Bitcoin is going to be bullish and we start to see some momentum now, we might not even retrace all the way back to 88K there. So might be a missed opportunity already. But of course, as a trader, you've got to stay alert. Potentially it might happen, potentially it might not. Be ready for it if it does happen. I think that's a great place for a long, nice place for a stop loss. And certainly if you're going to look for a swing position, the risk reward looks really good on that position as well. And of course, you got the highs there at 108K. So very bullish on Bitcoin. Momentum looks good. I hope the weekly candle can close strong as well. That still has a day and a bit left. I'm recording this on Saturday. So again, we'll have to wait till Sunday to see what the weekly candle does have in store at the close. But what I'm seeing right now, everything is still looking pretty bullish. So yeah, looking for more of the same. Really strong move to the upside. I like what I'm seeing. Looking for a bit of a correction. 88K looks really good. Great place for entries. Of course, if we do see the necessary rejection. And then yeah, I would be expecting to push it back to highs at that point, unless we get some red flags along the way. At this point, I would be looking for a lot more upside for Bitcoin. So that's the plan going to next week for BTC. Okay, so last but not least, we've got our bonus pair, which for this week is New Zealand CHF. So I really like this pair. Recently, we crashed lower, created new all-time lows for this one. So as a currency pair does make its new all-time lows or new all-time highs, typically it does look to reverse in the opposite direction as we pull back. Lack of sellers to keep driving price lower, we're going to have a bit of a breather. So I am anticipating a bit of a pullback there for New Zealand CHF. I've already seen a bit of a pullback, but I think we still have room to the upside. So if we can have a bit of a correction on the 4-hour chart back into some structure, I think that would be a great opportunity to find some longs and continue to buy this up as the market does retrace its larger move. This is where all the momentum came from that drop a few weeks ago. I think we're likely to come back into that zone, potentially even break through it as well. So I do think there could be more upside past that point, but I think just from a trading perspective, if we can buy down low, take profit around there, I think that's a sensible trade there. So if New Zealand CHF can fall a little bit further, that would be nice. I'm looking at this zone here, 0.488, really nice resistance there. Hasn't really been respected too much, but if price comes down again, starts to find some wicks, I think there'll be a good chance that a high low does form, and we can look to ride that back into resistance, or even that supply area on the daily chart. And that could be a really nice place to take some profit and even leave positions to run, because if this is the all-time low, I do think price has a long way to go to correct itself before we do see a continuation in this bearish trend. So I really like the buys here for New Zealand CHF. I'm actually looking at a couple of other CHF pairs as well for some upside, but I would say New Zealand CHF looks the best. So that is definitely going to be one of my pairs I focus on next week. So yeah, keep an eye on pullbacks. 0.486488 looks good, and targets around 0.5 for next week. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course make sure you do go and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Check out the Discord link to Elevating Traders, link in the description to that. You can chat with other traders, chat with myself, share ideas there, find updates as well. So if you do want to get involved, make sure you do check out the Discord link, completely free to join. But guys, I do appreciate you tuning into another video. If you have found it useful, drop a like before you do exit. Have a great weekend. Of course, I'm streaming next week, so I hope to see you there. Take care, guys.